Greetings from our Temecula studios. I'm Ryder Bullock. This is the Hardwood Report on a pivotal Tuesday night in the NBA playoffs. 3 games on the slate. And we begin in Boston, where one team is on the brink and the other is fighting to survive. The Boston Celtics are 1 game away from advancing, and they didn't just win Game 4, they dominated it. A 128-96 statement powered by an unexpected star turn from Peyton Pritchard, who dropped 32 points and flipped the tone of this series. For Boston, it's been about balance and physicality. They lead the East in rebounding, controlling the tempo, and defensively, they've held Philadelphia well below their season scoring pace. Jaylen Brown continues to anchor the offense, while Jason Tatum has quietly flipped the stat sheet across the board. But if you're Philadelphia, this is where the stars must be stars. Joel Embiid had 26 in his return, but he'll need more tonight if the Sixers want to stay in this series. Tyrese Maxey remains their engine, averaging over 28 a game, and they'll need his explosiveness tonight to extend this series. The storyline, can Boston close the door at home, or does Philadelphia find one last push? Over at Madison Square Garden, it's now a best of 3 between the New York Knicks and the Atlanta Hawks. New York responded in Game 4 with authority, winning by 16 behind a balanced effort. Jalen Brunson continues to be the stabilizer, 26 points per game this season, and his control in big moments has defined the series. For Atlanta, they've been dangerous all year offensively, averaging nearly 119 points per game. Jalen Johnson has emerged as a do-it-all force, while perimeter shooting remains a key weapon. The storyline in a series this tight, Game 5 often decides everything. Who takes control under the Garden lights? And out west, the San Antonio Spurs are also looking to close things out against the Portland Trail Blazers. San Antonio has been one of the most explosive teams in the league, nearly 120 points per game, and their young superstar Victor Wembanyama has delivered across the board, scoring, rebounding, and rim protection. Add in De'Aaron Fox, and this team has been relentless. Portland, meanwhile, is battling uphill, especially without Damian Lillard. Denny Avdija has stepped up, but they'll need a near-perfect performance to force a Game 6. The storyline, are the Spurs ready to announce themselves as a true contender, or can Portland extend the fight? More on those games in a moment, but first, some breaking news. The NBA is taking direct aim at tanking. A new proposal, the 3-2-1 lottery, would expand the draft lottery to 16 teams, flatten the odds, and most notably, penalize the league's worst 3 teams with fewer chances at the number 1 pick. In short, losing more would no longer guarantee better odds. Teams just outside the bottom tier would actually be rewarded more, creating late season incentive to compete rather than collapse. The plan also prevents teams from winning the top pick in back-to-back years and limits repeated top 5 selections. It will begin in 2027 and run through 2029, pending approval from team owners. Commissioner Adam Silver has made clear the league intends to fix tanking and restore competitive integrity. A simple idea, really, in the NBA. Losing should never be the strategy. And I think this is the NBA finally waking up to something everybody's known for years. This whole tanking thing, it's been a problem, a real problem. You had teams not trying to win games. That's the National Basketball Association. That's a bad look. That's not what this league is supposed to be about. This isn't a developmental league. This is the NBA. People pay to see competition, not organizations mailing it in for ping pong balls. Now, this new 3-2-1 lottery, I actually like the idea. I do, because what it's saying is simple. You don't get rewarded for being the worst team in the league anymore. And that's the way it should be. For too long, the worst record came with the biggest prize. That's backwards. Completely backwards. You're going to expand it to 16 teams, flatten the odds, and here's the key. Penalize the bottom 3 teams. That's the hammer right there. That's the league saying, we see what you're doing, and we're not going to let you game the system anymore. And I like that part. This is important, right? It's important that teams just outside the bottom tier actually get a little bump, because now you've got something to play for in March and April. You're not just shutting guys down. You're not just running G League lineups. You're competing, and that matters. It's good for the product. It's good for the fans. And frankly, it's good for the league's credibility. Now, the other piece, no back-to-back number 1 picks, limits on repeated top 5 selections. That's the league trying to prevent these long-term rebuild cycles where a team just stays bad and keeps getting rewarded for it. You don't want that either. You want turnover. You want a hope spread around the league. You don't want to stockpile the same franchise, right? You don't want these long-term rebuilds. Let's just rebuild it, get it going, and hopefully we can figure it out in a year. Now, will this fix everything? No, let's not get crazy. Teams are still going to rebuild. They're going to, still make these long-term decisions. But what it does do, it changes the math. It changes the incentive structure, and that's what this is all about. And give Adam Silver credit here. He's been consistent. He said for years he doesn't like the optics of tanking. This is him putting something real on the table to address it. Bottom line is this, and it's as simple as it gets. It's competitive league. It's a competitive league. Losing should never be the strategy. It just shouldn't. And for the first time in a while, the NBA is actually taking a real swing at fixing that. Former NBA player Damon Jones has become the first to plead guilty in a sweeping federal gambling investigation that has ensnared more than 30 individuals, including figures tied to organized crime. In a Brooklyn courtroom today, Jones admitted to using insider knowledge gained through his relationship within the National Basketball Association to defraud sports betting companies. Prosecutors say that knowledge included non-public injury information involving high-profile players such as LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Details that were leveraged for financial gain. But the story doesn't end there. Jones also acknowledged his role in rigged high-stakes poker games, serving as a celebrity face to lure wealthy participants into contests he knew were fixed. Those operations, authorities allege, were tied to major crime families and resulted in losses exceeding $9 million. The fallout continues to spread with additional scrutiny surrounding figures like Terry Rozier and even Hall of Famer Chauncey Billups. For Jones, sentencing now looms, potentially several years behind bars. For the league, it's another chapter in the ongoing battle to protect the credibility of the sport. And for fans, it's a stark reminder the games we trust are only as honest as those entrusted to play them. And this is bad, right? This is not a little sidebar. This is not a guy made a mistake. This is a full-blown black eye from the league. You got Damon Jones, former player, coach, guy who's been inside the game, pleading guilty to conspiracy, wire fraud, the whole thing. And what's the angle? Insider information, injury information, the kind of stuff that cannot get out if you want any integrity in professional sports. And don't kid yourself, this isn't just about one guy. It never is. From December 2022 to March 2024, this is what prosecutors are saying. He's using relationships, locker room knowledge, injury intel to beat sports books. That's not guessing. That's not handicapping. That's cheating. Period. And then it gets worse. He's not just doing that. He's showing up at these high-end poker games in Miami, the Hamptons, acting as what they call a face card. You know what that means. He's the bait. He's the guy you recognize, the NBA name, the credibility. You see him, you think the game's legit. It's not legit. It's rigged. Cameras, marked setups, X-rays, X-ray tables. All kinds of stuff. The whole operation, millions of dollars. Over $9.5 million lost, according to the prosecutors. That's organized stuff. It's not a casual Friday night poker game. And now you've got, this potential sentencing. We're talking about years, not months, years. And here's what I'm going to take. I'm going to take it a step further. This comes at a time when the National Basketball Association and really all leagues are in bed with gambling. Let's not pretend it otherwise. We're going to do a segment tonight called Pick and Play. It's everywhere. Ads, partnerships, broadcasts, pregame shows, you name it. So the question becomes, how do you sell gambling to the public? And how do you do it while keeping the integrity legit? Because the second fans think games are influenced even a little, you got a problem you can't fix. And don't miss this part. He allegedly used info involving guys like LeBron James and Anthony Davis, two of the biggest names in the sport, two of the biggest markets in LA, and, Davis was in LA at the time. So big markets, and that's where the money is, right? So now you're asking the public to trust outcomes. Well, stories like this are out there. It's a dangerous line. And listen, I've said this for years. Gambling and sports can coexist, but only if the wall between them is concrete, not paper thin. Not we trust everybody. Concrete. Because once that wall cracks even a little, you're not just talking about one guy going to jail. You're talking about fans questioning everything. And when that happens, that's when you've got a real crisis on your hands. Hopefully there'll be no crises tonight because this is playoff basketball now. This is not January. This is not one of those Tuesday nights where you're floating through the schedule. This is Game 5. This is where series turn, seasons end, reputations get made, and coaches either look brilliant or they're answering questions all summer. Tonight we've got 3 games. 2 teams can close, Boston and San Antonio. One series is dead even, Atlanta and New York. And that one to me is the most fascinating game on the board because when a series is 2-2, Game 5 is not just important, it usually decides the tone of everything. So let's go through it here. We'll start with the game that is first, and that's the 76ers at the Celtics. Boston leads at 3-1. Line, Celtics 11.5, total 215.5. This series is basically on life support for Philadelphia. Boston just beat them by 32. That's not a close loss. That is not a we missed a few shots. That is a statement. And the bigger story was Peyton Pritchard going for 32. When your role players are beating Philadelphia like that, that tells you everything about the defense and its depth, and it's how different it is. The Celtics have Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Nikola Vucevic on the glass, and now they're getting bench production. Philadelphia has Embiid, Maxey, and Paul George, but the question is, can they survive long enough defensively? Boston wants to spread you out, attack mismatches, and punish late rotations. Philadelphia has to protect Embiid without letting Boston get clean threes. That is very hard to do. The Celtics are going to run high screen action, make Embiid defend space, and force Philadelphia's guards to fight over screens. If Maxey gets stuck trailing, if Boston is going downhill, Philadelphia switches, Boston hunts the mismatch. If they drop, Boston gets pull-ups and rhythm threes. Philadelphia's answer has to be pace. They cannot let this become a half-court Boston execution game. Maxey has to push Edgecombe to get out. Okay, Maxey has to push his team, and it involves Edgecombe having to get out. They average nearly 17 fast break points per game, and they need every one of them. Keys for Philadelphia. Embiid has to be dominant early, not just score, dominate, get to the line, slow the game, put Vucevic in foul trouble, make Boston defend the paint before they start loading up on shooters. Maxey has to be a star. Not good, a star. Okay? He cannot have a quiet 22. He needs 30 or more with pace, pressure, and assists. And I think Paul George has to be better than the nice veteran third option. In an elimination game, he has to give them a real shot-making opportunity. He has to really do it. For Boston, don't play with your food. That's the key. You're home. You're up 3-1. You're better than this. End it. End it tonight, right? Jaylen Brown has been terrific. Tatum has not had to carry the full load, which is dangerous for Philadelphia because Boston has won without needing a monster, right? They've done it all year. And how about Pritchard, right? He gives you anything close to what he gave you in Game 4. Philadelphia almost has no path. So I think Philadelphia competes early. This is probably close at halftime. Embiid and Maxey come out desperate. But Boston's depth, spacing, and home floor wear them down. I'm picking the Celtics tonight. 11.5, that's big. But I still lean Boston because this feels like a closeout blowout waiting to happen. I think Celtics 119, Sixers 104. Okay. Hawks at the Knicks. I know I previewed it, and then I got carried away with this Boston game. But I just want to tell you, this is the game of the night. Okay, this is a real series. Atlanta had life. New York punched it back in Game 4. Now you go to Madison Square Garden for Game 5, and this is where Jalen Brunson has to be the best player on the floor. The Knicks are home. They're the better seed. They've just won by 16. But Atlanta is dangerous because they can score. They can spread you out. And Jalen Jackson is a problem. Okay? I think for the Knicks, it starts with Brunson. Everything starts with Brunson. High pick and roll, isolation, elbow touches, foul line area, getting into the lane, forcing help. Atlanta has to decide, are we letting Brunson score 35? Or are we sending bodies and living with OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, and the Knicks shooters? The Knicks made over 14 threes per game this season. That matters. If Atlanta overhelps, New York will get clean looks. For Atlanta, Jalen Johnson is the key. He's averaging 22, 10, and almost 8 assists. That's not normal. That is point forward production. He can rebound and lead the break. He can attack mismatches. He can create offense without everything being guard dominated. Here's the keys for Atlanta. They need pace. They cannot let this be a slow, grinding Madison Square Garden game where every possession becomes Brunson walking you into a screen. C.J. McCollum has to be better than 17 points. In Game 5 on the road, your veterans have to settle you. Nickeil Alexander-Walker has to hit shots. If he's making threes, the floor is open. If not, New York can shrink the court. And I think that's going to help New York. Here are the keys for New York. They're going to shrink the court. OG Anunoby's huge. He led them with 22 in the last game. My X factor, because his defense matters even more. He can guard multiple spots. He can make Atlanta work. The Knicks also need to win the possession battle. Offensive rebounds, loose balls, fewer empty tips. And Brunson has to control the fourth quarter. This is why you have him. Last year's most clutch player, right? Game 5, home floor tied series. That's the start. That's star time right there. I like New York. I trust Brunson more in a half-court playoff game at home. Atlanta will hang around, but I think the Garden gets loud. The Knicks get a third-quarter push, and they close it late. 6.5 is the spread. That's playable, but I like it better at 5 or 5.5. Still, I'll lay it. Final, Knicks 111, Hawks 102. Knicks take a 3-2 series lead. Trailblazers at the Spurs. Spurs lead at 3-1. The line is 12.5. Total 215.5. This is another closeout spot. San Antonio is home. They're up 3-1. They just beat Portland by 21. Now, I say all that, and I'm looking at the Rockets beating the Lakers, and I'm looking at the Nuggets last night, which I know the Timberwolves were compromised. So I'm saying all this. And I'm going, come on, San Antonio. You had the best player in the series, Victor Wembanyama. But Portland has fought, right? Denny Avdija has been good. But tonight he has to be excellent. Drew Holiday has to be solid, right? And this is one of those games where you wish Damian Lillard was playing, right? They just don't have Damian Lillard, and I think that would help them so much more. Because they don't, and I just don't think they're going to have enough late-game offense. So take a look at our X's and O's. San Antonio's formula is simple. Pace, length, defense, and Wembanyama. You bend those together on the floor, both ends, and I tell you what, when Wemby is involved in screening actions, Portland has a problem. If they switch, he shoots over smaller defenders. If they stay home, Fox turns the corner. If they bring help, San Antonio gets movement. They get the three, or they can dump it off. And defensively, Wembanyama changes everything. Portland drivers are seeing him, at the rim. And that means floaters, knockouts, hesitation, everything becomes a little slower. De'Aaron Fox is the other major issue. He had 28 in Game 4. His speed puts Portland in rotation before the play even develops. So I like De'Aaron Fox. He's my X factor in this game. I think he's going to have a little more than 28, as a matter of fact. Here are the keys for Portland. Avage has to be tremendous again, right? He had 26 last game. He needs that and more. Drew Holiday has to control tempo. If this becomes a track meet, Portland is in trouble with a capital T. They need to hit threes early. If San Antonio gets up 12 or 15 in the first half, the building gets loud and this thing can get away fast. Keys for San Antonio: feed Wembanyama, run with Fox, and defend without fouling. This is not complicated. San Antonio is better. They're younger, deeper, and more explosive, and they're at home. The one thing they cannot do is start thinking about the next round. Close the door, right? Here's tonight's pick. I think Portland gives effort. I do. But effort is not enough when the other team has Wembanyama and Fox at home in a closeout game. So Spurs win. Spurs at 12.5. That's a little large, but I lean San Antonio because Portland's offense can dry up. So the final: Spurs 121, Blazers 103. Just to recap, I like the Celtics over the Sixers, the Knicks over the Hawks, and the Spurs over the Trail Blazers. Best pick, the Knicks and the money line. Knicks 6.5. Strongest closeout feel. Celtics most likely blowout Spurs. Will advance to the next round as well. Tonight is all about stars and closers. Boston and San Antonio should finish the job. New York has to protect the Garden. And if the Knicks win tonight, that series changes completely. Games tonight on ESPN and NBC. We will see you at halftime for Philly and Boston.